The third one is the scanner class. Now, the scanner class, guys, it's really important. It's a really important class. And we're looking at how is user input received in a Java program. So you can't really receive input from a user without having a scanner class in Java. The scanner class is used to get user input. However, before you use the scanner class in Java, you need to import it from the utility package. So again, you're going to see how this is going to be applied in a Java program. But an object of the scanner class also needs to be created, because even if you import it from the utility package, and a package is sort of like a library. It's like you go into a library and there's so many books. So utility is one of those books in a Java package. Or should I say the other way around? The scanner class is one of the books in the utility package. So you cannot really create or use the scanner class if you do not have, or you do not create the object of the scanner class. That's what we call it. So we have to create an object of the scanner class to be able to use it, because without the scanner class, you can't really ask for input from the users. So the users cannot enter anything. Now, the basic syntax, without looking at the import yet, whenever we want to create or use a scanner class, like I said, you'd have to import it from the utility package. So it has to be written as import.java.util, and you can say .scanner if you want to specifically just use the scanner class. We are going to see that again in depth in an actual Java program that we'll be looking at. However, what you need to know is the most important thing here is to create an object of that scanner class that you're importing. So how do we create an object of the scanner class? How do we write it down in a program? Well, you're supposed to write down, first of all, scanner with a capital S, and then you're supposed to give some sort of name. Any name, variable name you can think of, which is going to be the object name of this class. So I gave this name called obj. You can give any name you want here, but make sure you give it after you write scanner with a capital S. And then you're going to write equal to new scanner again. And in parentheses, you're going to be writing system.in. So you can already tell that system.in means receiving system input. And that is whenever you ask the user for something, you need their input, so you need to have the scanner class and the object of the scanner class, which is this line right here. This is exactly the syntax. We call it a syntax, means the structure of how to create a scanner object. Again, you have to start with scanner. You have to give a variable name, which will become the object name. You have to say equal, new, scanner again. And in parentheses, you have to write system.in. Now, it is not enough to just create a scanner object. We also have to determine what would be the right scanner method to use as well. And that is all based on the type of data that you require for the user to enter. So if you're asking the user to enter a name, then of course, like we've talked about, the data type you would require is string, because names are made up of letters. Or it could be alphanumeric, depending on what exact name you need. But you have to also specify what would be the right scanner method to use to receive that name from the user. And there are two scanner methods we're going to be looking at here. There are more, by the way, but we're looking at two because we focused already on two different types of data. We focused on string and integer. Remember that string is receiving text-like or alphanumeric information from the user, and integer receives whole numbers. So if you were to ask the user for information that was text-like or alphanumeric in nature, or numbers that did not contain decimals, then what would be the right scanner method to use to receive those inputs? Well, for integers, the scanner method to use would be called nextInt. For string, the scanner method would be either nextLine or next. So either of these two receives input from the user that is a string data type. Now, how do we apply all of this into a Java program? I'm sure you're wondering by this stage. And don't worry, the answer is right here. We're actually going to be practicing programming, so you just need to understand the basics a little before you start to code. Now, the example is given below. As I said before, you need to import the scanner class from the utility package. And I said a package is like a library. When you go into a library, you see so many books. There's so many packages. I mean, we have so many type of classes that belong to so many packages in Java. Right now, we're just focusing on the scanner class. So this is how you'd write it in your actual Java program. You'd start with import java.util.scanner. You'd see exactly where to place this. So what I'm doing here is I'm just writing the code block based on what you've already seen so far. But of course, the way and where you're going to be placing each of these code blocks, you would actually see when we create our first Java project. But the first thing you need to do is to import the scanner class from the utility package. And this is how you write it. Import space java.util.scanner, and then you put a semicolon. Okay, so once you've done this or written this statement, you've already imported the scanner class. Now, the next thing to do would be to create your object of your scanner class. And again, like I've said, you'd have to write scanner first, the name of your object equal to new, then scanner, and then of course in parentheses, you'd write system.in. So this is creating an object of your scanner class. Now you're going to display an output on the user screen based on what type of information you need to receive from the user. So here you guys can see that if I actually printed this message, what is your favorite food? That's the information that the user is going to see on their monitor or their screen. And they need to enter an input. Well, they need to give an input. And the computer needs to receive that input because then your program progresses based on the input. And how do we receive input from the user? Using the scanner object, using the data type, using the variables that we've already seen. Well, first of all, you have to specify what kind of data that information you're requiring from the user is. So because it says what is your favorite food, we all know that food is made up of letters and therefore it is text information. So the best data that's going to store that information, the best data type would be string. And so you'd have to write your data type first, and then you'd have to give your variable name. So a variable name that's going to store the value, which means the exact food the user is entering. It's going to store it on your computer's RAM. So that's like primary memory, temporary memory. It's just going to store it there because you may use it. You may say, okay, what's your favorite food? And the person says, pizza. And you're like, wow, I also like pizza. So what are you doing in that statement where you say, I also like pizza? You're making use of that information that the user has entered, which was pizza. And so that's why you have to store pizza, which is the actual value, under some sort of variable name, which would be food. So that's why I said you would use it again later on in your program. That's why it's stored under a variable. So you'd have to give the data type first and then give a variable name that makes sense, which is meaningful. In this case, the one that would really make sense is just food. So food is a variable name that's going to store whatever the user enters as their favorite food. And then you'd have to put equal sign, and then you'd have to write the name of your scanner object that you already had created here in the second line. And the name that we used was OBJ, so you have to write the exact same thing. Programming languages are very sensitive. If you change anything, then you're going to be getting some errors. So write exactly what you had indicated as the object name of your scanner object. So obj.nextLine, and you realize that I'm using the right method of the scanner object or scanner class to be able to receive this input from the user. I didn't say obj.nextInt, guys. I said .nextLine. The reason is because nextLine is the correct scanner method that is used to receive string data type from users, or string or alphanumeric type information from users. I can also use .next if I prefer, and it's also going to receive the same thing, and it's also for string. So I'm not using .nextInt because I'm not asking the user for numbers. I'm asking them for text-like information. So therefore, you have to know what is the right scanner method to use as well. It's very important. Now, once you have all of this indicated, all these blocks of codes indicated, then your program would run successfully. All right, guys, I hope up until this stage you understood what scanner class is and what scanner object is and how we apply them with data types, specifically string data types and variables in a Java program. Again, we're going to be coding this so you would actually see the technical application or practical application of these concepts. Now let's move on to the next concept.